Jodie Clarkson was given 6 months to live. 10 years later, she is taking her son skydiving for his 18th birthday. Jodie was diagnosed with a brain tumour in Alice Springs. Today, she runs 3 kilometres almost every morning. She has had 70 days of chemotherapy, 33 rounds of radiation, 2 brain surgeries, and a decade of palliative care. She says it plainly, palliative care didn't just manage her pain, it gave her life back to her. A recent article by Stephen Lunn in The Australian uses Jodie's story as its opening and its title, and then spends the rest of the piece subtly arguing for something her own story disproves. The article says people can find a good death through palliative care or through euthanasia, but those are not two paths to the same place. The article even admits this itself without realising it, saying that palliative care neither accelerates nor postpones death, whereas assisted suicide does one specific thing: it ends life deliberately. Only one of these choices accompanies this person in their journey. The other choice ends it. Those are not two flavours of the same good death. They are in fact opposites. The article doesn't treat them as opposites. It quotes the CEO of Go Gentle Australia, the country's leading pro-euthanasia advocacy group, hardly an unbiased source. She says that euthanasia and palliative care are not mutually exclusive and work side by side. The only truth here is in the sense that a person can technically receive both. But that suggests that expanding euthanasia access costs nothing, that a stretched healthcare system can just keep doing both equally well. The article never asks the obvious question: when resources, staff, and referral pathways are already rationed, what actually gets prioritised? I think you can guess the answer. The most surprising statistic in the entire piece is glossed over. Only 38% of Australians who'd benefit from specialist palliative care actually get it. Cancer patients get access 68% of the time. People dying with dementia, now Australia's leading cause of death, only 16%. Dr. Peter Allcroft from Palliative Care Australia says it outright: financial pressures on hospitals filters through to specialist palliative care services, who are then forced to ration access to only the most needy. So here's the system this article describes. A form of care proven to give people like Jodie a decade of life is chronically underfunded, rationed, and arriving too late for almost everyone who needs it. And the article's response to this scandal isn't outrage, it's to pivot towards expanding eligibility for access to euthanasia. The option that doesn't need years of infrastructure, doesn't need a multidisciplinary team, doesn't need home visits and after-hours support, just a diagnosis and a completed form. The concern is, why should healthcare workers in the future strive for better solutions and support when it is far easier to administer euthanasia if it is seen as just as good an option to end a patient's life? Euthanasia currently requires ongoing decision-making capacity. The article then spends a paragraph asking why dementia patients shouldn't get it anyway. That requirement exists for an obvious reason. Someone needs to be able to confirm all the way through that this is still what they want. The moment that requirement is loosened, you no longer know if the person in front of you actually wants to die today, or if an earlier version of them once said yes to something they can no longer meaningfully consent to. The article surfaces this exact tension. Capacity is required, dementia removes capacity, and then moves straight past it to a poll showing 80% public support for expansion anyway. It never resolves the contradiction. It just lets the popularity of the idea stand in for an answer. This is the pattern that should worry every Australian. Regardless of where you land on euthanasia in principle, the safeguards that made this legal in the first place are already being treated as obstacles to work around. Here's the part of the story the article buries at the very end, and it might be the most telling part of it all. Jodie lives in the Northern Territory, where euthanasia still isn't legal. A bill is coming later this year, and here's what she says about it. Even once it's an option, she probably won't use it. She wants to be around for her son. She trusts her palliative care team to get her comfortably to the end. That is not a woman choosing between two equal doors. That's a woman who was given real, sustained, well-resourced care, and it gave her 10 years she was never supposed to get. It gave her a decade to watch her son grow up, and in her own words, what got her through it wasn't a system, a policy, or a form, it was her. She said, "I've run throughout my treatment, about 3Ks a day, and if I do that, I can keep my emotions and logic in check because the biggest battle is in your head." That's the good death this article should have been about. Not a choice between dying sooner or dying later, but a woman equipped, supported, and given enough time to fight through the worst of it all and come out on the other side stronger than anyone would have expected. We don't need more debate about who qualifies for an earlier death. We need what gave Jodie her decade. Properly funded palliative care, available early, available everywhere. If Australia gets that right, there will be more people like Jodie Clarkson, people who are given less than 6 months and then with the support of palliative care get to live out the end of their lives with the dignity they deserve. That's worth fighting for.